I have two boys, so they're constantly hungry. And my wife already has actually started to sort of penny pinch, not buy, overbuy.
And I've never seen it so empty like that in a Walmart since it's been here.
This is the first time coming in here and not finding some of the things that I'm looking for.
Nowadays, with just a flick of the wallet, many Americans no longer feel like they are spending money, but rather betting on dinner. A harsh reality is unfolding in numerous states across America, where prices are skyrocketing, jobs are disappearing silently, and millions are being pushed away from the very places they once called home. No special news report, no alarm sirens, just a morning when you couldn't afford your usual meal, an unexpected gas bill exceeding a week's salary, or a company restructuring quietly, taking your contract along with the hazy smoke. In today's video, we will explore the 10 states that are falling into the most dangerous zone in 2025, as inflation, layoffs, and social infrastructure instability combine like a perfect storm. And if you think you live in a stable place, stay tuned until the end of the video, because the state you live in may have changed faster than you think. A small note, the content in this video is compiled from public and reputable sources. We do not intend to provide financial advice or judge any business. The goal is to help you, those who care about the future of the American economy, gain additional perspectives, information, and necessary preparations. Let's move on to the first name. California, the richest state in the US and the fifth largest economy in the world, is at risk of facing an internal collapse. Not loud, not clear, but persistent. In Los Angeles or San Francisco, just step into a grocery store and you'll understand immediately. Buying a basic shopping cart can cost nearly as much as your rent from 10 years ago. Eggs are up, milk prices are rising, gasoline is also increasing. Everything keeps going up every day, except for the salary. Inflation in California is not just a number on the news. It's the feeling of anxiety every time you open a bill. Not only goods, but also rent prices have exceeded the affordability of even those working full-time. A one-bedroom apartment in the average residential area now costs more than $2,700 per month, nearly or even exceeding the income of many Californians. But what puts California at the top of the list at risk of collapse is not just the cost of living, but the silent wave of layoffs sweeping across the state. Since late 2024, tens of thousands of workers at major tech companies like Meta, Amazon, and Tesla have been laid off. But it's not just office workers. Security guards, logistics staff, receptionists, cleaners, delivery drivers, all are affected in a chain reaction. A cancelled contract in San Jose can lead to 5 families losing their jobs in Oakland. A 58-year-old man who used to drive a domestic delivery truck for an electronics distribution company in Sacramento said, "I wasn't fired, but I no longer have a route. It's been 4 weeks since I've run a single delivery." He is living off credit cards and hoping that gas prices will drop and the company will call back. But no one is promising anything. Meanwhile, the local markets and grocery stores are starting to see their shelves empty in waves, not as dramatically as during the pandemic, but rather a series of localized shortages. Milk, cooking oil, and toilet paper sell out within a few days, then return at higher prices. People quietly stock up, not out of fear, but because experience tells them tomorrow will be harder than today. This situation also forces the middle class, who were once symbols of stability, into a corner. They are neither poor enough to receive help nor rich enough to live in peace. Many people are forced to leave the state, taking their dreams and regrets with them. California, once a symbol of opportunity, wealth, and the future, is now forcing even those who have been tied to it for decades to leave or fall. When the American dream turns into an unaffordable bill, it could be a collapse. Let's continue with the second state, where the lights never go out, but the sighs of the working class grow louder each month. New York used to be a place where many people came to make it big. But now, with prices skyrocketing, people seem to be feeling more anxious than dreamy. You can imagine, a cup of coffee in Manhattan costs nearly $7. A simple meal can easily reach $20. But what really makes people sweat isn't the hot coffee, but the rising bills for electricity, rent, and childcare that are increasing every day and show no signs of stopping anytime soon. In 2024, New York lost over 50,000 jobs in the finance, media, and technology sectors. Not because of a lack of talent, but because of the high operating costs. Companies are racing to leave, leaving behind empty office buildings and workers with empty wallets. Meanwhile, supermarkets in the Bronx or Queens frequently find their shelves empty, not due to a nationwide supply shortage, but because of petty crime, high insurance costs, and increased shipping expenses, which have forced many stores to close or withdraw from impoverished areas. But the bigger issue is the feeling of helplessness, when even a full-time job can't help you make ends meet in this city. The rent in areas like Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx has exceeded $3,000 a month, forcing many middle-class people to share rooms, move to the suburbs further away, or rely on credit cards. Hundreds of families find themselves in the situation of being anonymous poor, living in tidy homes, working full-time, but left with only $100 each month for medicine, food, and emergencies. And so, on one hand, you have the upscale neighborhoods in Manhattan where people still sip red wine, while just a few blocks away, residents line up for food aid as if they were living in the Great Depression. A 60-year-old woman who used to be a public preschool teacher in Queens shared, "I wasn't laid off, but they reduced the classes, cut the hours, and I no longer had enough hours to qualify for insurance. I took on extra work as a private babysitter to earn money, not to live well, but to avoid being late on rent." At the same time, the shortage of goods repeats in cycles. One week there's a shortage of milk, the next week a shortage of rice, then fever medicine, sanitary pads, and baby food. Supermarkets like Target, Costco, Key Food all confirm that their inventory levels are not what they used to be. But what makes New York more concerning is not the shortage, but the loss of trust. The people no longer believe in the promise that everything will get better, nor do they believe that hard work will help them live decently in a city that once promised that. New York, once the stage for grand dreams, is now becoming a land of diminished hopes. And if the teachers, nurses, and civil servants, the pillars of the community, are also struggling to survive, then who will keep this city standing? Texas was once hailed as the promised land for the middle class. Low taxes, vast land, affordable housing. But in 2025, people in Dallas, Austin, or Houston are starting to ask each other, is Texas becoming overloaded too? With the influx of migrants from expensive states, housing prices in Texas have increased by more than 40% in just a few years. Salaries have stagnated, while utility bills, water, and insurance have skyrocketed, especially after the recent extreme weather events. When summer comes, the air conditioning bill is enough to make you sweat even before you turn on the AC. Not only that, rental prices in Austin, Dallas, and Houston have increased by 30 to 45%, and even higher in some central areas. A two-bedroom apartment now can cost $2,200 a month, a price that residents here considered unimaginable 5 years ago. The cost of living is rising, but wages remain unchanged. And now, jobs are also disappearing. The wave of layoffs from tech companies in Austin, factories in Houston, and oil and gas businesses in West Texas has left tens of thousands unemployed, especially middle-aged workers who cannot switch industries as easily as the younger generation. A delivery driver around Houston for over 20 years said, "I'm still healthy, still ready to work. But they say the new system is automated now. Now I work part-time at a convenience store, and I'm using my savings to buy food." In the major cities of Texas, supermarkets are beginning to face localized shortages. 1 week without rice. Next week, there will be a shortage of milk. Cooking oil and frozen meat prices increase with each new shipment. The stores that were once fully stocked now reveal empty shelves, not because shoppers are panicking, but due to the slowed supply chain and high operating costs. Worse yet, Texas is witnessing difficulties in housing control. A large number of middle-class families are being pushed out of the city center, far from schools, far from hospitals. Some even moved in with relatives or lived in vans. even though they still had jobs. Texas used to be a place to start over. Now, it has become a place where many people are losing the last bit of stability they had. And if a large, dynamic, resource-rich state like Texas can't hold on to its middle class, then we need to ask, where is the safe zone? If you've ever thought of Florida as the ideal retirement destination, with its golden sunshine, blue seas, and affordable cost of living, then try asking those living in Tampa or Miami in 2025. The response will be a sigh longer than the I-95 highway during rush hour. In recent years, millions of people have flocked to Florida, bringing with them hopes of a new life. But that has driven rental prices in some cities like Miami up by more than 60% in just 3 years, turning a mid-range apartment into a luxury. Salaries haven't increased, but bills are piling up. From home insurance to groceries, everything has skyrocketed after a series of natural disasters, inflation, and supply chain disruptions. And if you think only real estate is expensive, you're mistaken. Baskets of vegetables, pieces of meat, or cans of milk are no longer as friendly as before. People in areas like Fort Myers or Jacksonville are starting to see empty shelves due to supermarkets cutting staff, delayed supply chains, and an overload of tourists. Worse, the tourism industry, the backbone of the state's economy, is being shaken. Restaurants and hotels are cutting staff due to soaring operating costs and customers spending more cautiously than before. Result? A silent wave of layoffs is underway, hitting blue-collar and middle-aged workers hard. A woman who used to be a front desk manager at a resort in Orlando shared, "I worked there for 16 years. But since the beginning of the year, they haven't scheduled me anymore. I'm still waiting for the callback. But this month marks the 5th month already." She's currently living on a small savings and the help from her son, who has also just lost his job. For the elderly, who make up the largest demographic group in Florida, the current situation is a challenge for them. They cannot travel far to buy cheap food. They can't work extra hours to pay for the home insurance that just doubled. And when they need to go to the hospital, many places have cut public healthcare services or switched to expensive private models. In counties like Broward, Pinellas, and Pasco, food banks and churches have reported a surge in the number of elderly people seeking assistance. Those who once lived comfortably on their pensions are now lining up for food boxes as if it were a crisis. Behind the beautiful, dazzling photos on social media are tens of thousands of people who have to choose between paying for electricity or buying medicine. And somewhere, people are starting to ask, is Florida still a paradise? Or is it just a luxury dream that the middle class can no longer reach? Las Vegas, the city of glamour, casinos, parties, and the promise of luck that can change your life, is now facing a stark reality. When no one comes to play, no one stays to live. Nevada relies almost entirely on the tourism, entertainment, and hotel industries. But since mid-2024, the number of visitors has started to decline sharply, not because of a lack of accommodations, but because Americans everywhere are tightening their spending. No one comes to visit if they are having to count every penny for groceries. The consequence is that hotels have stopped hiring. The casinos have cut shifts. The upscale restaurants are closing off sections or shifting to weekend operations. A man who used to be a chef at a restaurant in the Venetian recalled, "We used to serve 500 guests every night. Now it's 80. The entire kitchen team now has only 3 people left. I was the last one to be cut." Now he drives for a delivery service, 12 hours a day, no insurance, not knowing if he'll still have a job next month. Behind the glitzy facade of the Las Vegas Strip are rows of cheap motels, mobile home parks, and vans that have become homes for those who once had decent jobs. Housing prices in Nevada have increased by more than 25% since 2022. Meanwhile, wages in the service industry have decreased due to reduced hours. Electric bills, during the scorching summer, exceed $300 per month. The shortage of goods in Las Vegas and Reno is also starting to repeat in cycles, but ironically, no one is saving them. Most service workers in Nevada do not have long-term contracts, health insurance, or a support safety net. They are the ones working behind the scenes, and when the lights go out, they are the first to disappear. Nevada, once known as the entertainment paradise, is now becoming one of the most vulnerable regions in the United States. Because when the tourism industry cannot save its own operators, the system has cracked to its core. Illinois used to be one of the pillars of America's industrial and financial sectors. Chicago, a symbol of dynamism and the American working class, is now facing inflation, unemployment, and the silent collapse of the middle class. The challenge that Illinois is facing does not only come from the numbers. It comes through the weary eyes of those who still go to work, but can no longer afford a decent dinner. It is evident through the closure of major supermarkets like Walmart, Aldi, and Save-A-Lot in the South Side and West Side, leaving entire neighborhoods without affordable fresh food options. The price of gas in Chicago has exceeded $6 per gallon. A dozen eggs usually costs $8 to $9. Electricity prices have increased by nearly 25% in just 1 year. A family meal has now become a luxury for many middle-class households. What's more concerning is the sharp increase in crime in once peaceful residential areas, not only due to deteriorating living conditions, but also because community support systems are being drastically cut. Unemployment support centers are reducing their hours. Public schools are short on budget. Public hospitals are downsizing due to insufficient funding from the state. Meanwhile, the shortage of goods occurs quietly but steadily. Residents in the North Lawndale, Englewood, and southern suburbs report that they often have to travel more than 6 to 8 miles to find a supermarket with fresh vegetables. Items like milk, flour, and toilet paper often run out by the weekend. And now, a trip to the market has to be planned like a budget challenge. Panic buying is no longer a phenomenon. It has become a survival habit. People in Illinois no longer ask, "When will prices go down?" They only ask, "How can we make it through next month?" The wealth gap in Illinois is becoming increasingly pronounced. On one side are the brightly lit skyscrapers overlooking Lake Michigan, and on the other side are neighborhoods that can't afford to repair roads and are closing hospitals. Illinois, once a symbol of American industrial strength, is now forcing those who built it to struggle daily for survival. And when assembly workers, teachers, nurses, drivers, the people who keep this state running, all feel left behind, then the collapse may no longer be a distant possibility. Washington, home to giant corporations like Amazon and Microsoft, was once hoped to be a state immune to recession. But in 2025, the light from the large headquarters buildings is not enough to hide a truth. Ordinary workers are at risk of being left behind. Seattle, once a magnet for thousands of engineers, students, and young families, has now become a nightmare of costs. Rent has skyrocketed to the point where even full-time workers have to share rooms or live in their cars. Food prices are skyrocketing, while small grocery stores and discount supermarkets are closing down or moving far away from residential areas. A resident originally from Spokane sighed, "I used to work 3 jobs in Seattle and still couldn't cover all the bills. Now I just hope there are no more unexpected expenses piling up each month." Additionally, the wave of layoffs is spreading from major tech companies to even service industries. When giants like Amazon cut jobs, the domino effect occurs. Restaurants close, drivers become unemployed, and shop owners fall into debt. The social support system, once highly regarded in Washington, is now starting to jam under the wave of applications for unemployment benefits, housing assistance, and public health care. Food banks around Tacoma, Kent, and Spokane have reported shortages for 3 consecutive months. People who once had 6-figure incomes are now lining up for frozen food. It seems like no one is safe anymore. Panic buying is back in residential areas around Seattle. Milk, flour, and canned goods are being wiped out every weekend. The distribution system is operating slowly due to a lack of transport manpower and high fuel costs. The wealth gap in Washington has never been clearer. On one street, you can see supercars passing by Starbucks. But just a few blocks away, dozens of people are lined up waiting for free meals. On one side, are the super rich with soaring stocks and assets. On the other are those who once believed that hard work was enough, now left with only fatigue and unease. Washington is witnessing an unwanted social experiment. Can a state survive when prosperity only reaches 1%, while the remaining 99% struggle to cope with inflation, unemployment, and instability? Arizona used to be the ideal destination for retirees, middle-class families, and those dreaming of a warm, comfortable, and affordable life. But by 2025, the Arizona dream seems to be evaporating under the 110-degree F sun. In Phoenix, home prices have skyrocketed to unbelievable levels. In less than 3 years, the average rental cost has nearly doubled. Local residents, those who had lived stably for many years, are at risk of being pushed to the outskirts of the city they call home. Some elderly people even have to choose: pay the electricity bill for summer air conditioning or buy food. Speaking of food, prices at Arizona supermarkets are skyrocketing. Fruits, milk, meat, all are increasing in price every week. Many families can no longer afford to buy essentials at the local markets, forcing them to drive dozens of miles to suburban supermarkets or discount stores, if they still have a car to drive. A person who used to work as a warehouse employee for a major distribution chain said, "I moved from Fresno here because I heard the cost of living was low." But just after 2 years, the rent nearly doubled, and the company reduced hours due to fewer orders. Now I work extra night shifts at the gas station, just to have enough money to stay here. Moreover, a wave of small and medium-sized businesses in Tucson and Mesa are closing down, leading to a silent yet severe wave of layoffs. The once bustling shopping areas now have only a few stores still open. At the same time, Arizona is facing infrastructure overload. Traffic congestion is severe in newly developed areas. The community healthcare system is understaffed. Public schools do not have enough budget to keep up with the population growth. And the most concerning thing, supermarkets are running out of basic goods in newly developed residential areas. In Mesa, Glendale, and the suburbs of Phoenix, items such as milk, noodles, canned goods, and toilet paper frequently run out on weekends. Some supermarkets have started to limit purchases due to concerns about insufficient stock, as shipments from California are delayed by rising logistics costs. Meanwhile, the social welfare system in Arizona remains thin and is considered slow to respond, causing many people to be unable to receive assistance in a timely manner. Those who thought they were middle class now have to wait in line for food or ask relatives to send money from other states. Arizona, once proud to be a land open to everyone, is now becoming a place where opportunities exist only in real estate advertisements. When the pace of development outstrips the pace of protecting the people, the collapse does not come from natural disasters, but from insatiable ambition. Do you remember when Detroit was called the Motor City? Michigan was where America's pride once took flight, where the middle class could live well, raise families, and retire with dignity. But by 2025, that industrial dream is rotting amid rising prices, unemployment, and despair. A wave of layoffs in the electric vehicle and manufacturing sectors is sweeping through this state. Companies promise technological innovation, but then move production lines out of the state or even overseas. Middle-aged workers who have not been trained in digital skills are left behind without new direction and without sufficient living subsidies. And when incomes decline, prices soar. In Grand Rapids, a loaf of bread that used to cost $2 now costs nearly $4. Electric bills have increased by 30%, while wages have been stagnant since the Obama era. In many neighborhoods in Flint or Lansing, the grocery shelves are empty in the last days of the month. People are forced to hunt for sales like going into battle, competing for each pack of noodles, each carton of milk. Middle-class families now have to choose between paying bills or filling up their gas tanks to go to work. Do you see the irony? The state was once built by hard-working laborers, but now it has been abandoned by the very economic system. The wealth gap is becoming increasingly evident. On one side are the new buildings rising in Ann Arbor, while on the other are the abandoned neighborhoods with for sale signs covered in dust. A Michigan resident said tearfully, "We used to build America. Now it seems like America has forgotten us. Now it seems that America has forgotten us." If Michigan collapses, it is not just an economic collapse, but the shattering of the workers' memory of America's self-respect. You know, there was a time when Pennsylvania was the heart of industrial America. From the steel mills of Pittsburgh to the coal mines of the Northeast, this place once sustained millions of middle-class families. But in 2025, that heart is beating weaker. Under the weight of skyrocketing prices, a wave of unemployment, and panic buying. Gas prices in Philly sometimes hit $5 per gallon. People have to cut back on trips, calculating every mile. Meanwhile, major supermarket chains are closing down in working-class neighborhoods, leaving food deserts in the heart of the city. The shelves are completely empty, and small shops can't survive due to skyrocketing transportation costs. In Scranton, President Biden's hometown, many families have to live on food stamps, even though they used to have fairly stable incomes. An elementary school teacher recounted that she had to line up at 5 a.m. just to buy cheap frozen chicken. And what about jobs? Tech companies in Pittsburgh are cutting jobs, while the traditional energy sector is plummeting. Middle-aged workers are caught between two worlds, too young to retire, too old to be retrained. Pennsylvania now resembles a bitterly contrasting picture. On one side, luxurious apartments are rising near Ivy League universities, while on the other, working-class neighborhoods struggle to make ends meet. If anyone ever believed that this battleground state could shape America's future, then 2025 is showing something more frightening. It could predict the collapse of the very middle-class foundation. 10 states, 10 pieces. But the bigger picture is an America that is gradually changing, not on the map, but in the lives of real people. We have seen empty store shelves. The bills are out of reach. Those who once lived comfortably now have to line up for food, sell their cars to pay rent, and wonder, what did I do wrong? The truth is, they didn't do anything wrong. They work hard. They obey the law. They are the backbone of America. And if people in California, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania no longer feel safe, then no one should consider themselves immune. Which state do you live in? Do you see these signs happening around you? Please share your story in the comments section. You are not just telling us, you are also speaking for millions of people going through the same thing. If you find this video helpful and it reflects what you are feeling, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. This video is created with the purpose of providing information and perspectives that are educational and for reference. All data and content are compiled from public sources, official reports, media, and social observations. We do not represent any political, financial, or business organizations. Any decisions related to finance, migration, or employment should be carefully considered and not solely based on the information in this video.